we are all fascinated by what's going to happen with Ohtani because, of course, he's this two-way player. He might get 500 million, he might get 600 million, we don't know. And he's one of the rare players in history. So our fascination with him is perfectly legitimate and justified. Urías is interesting because he is going to hit the market at an extremely young age for an elite starting pitcher. We do not see these guys hit free agency when they are entering their age 27 season, and that's going to be the case for Urías. Last guy to do it, that was a big-time guy, Greg Maddux, 1992. Most elite starting pitchers, when they become free agents, they're in the 29 to 31 range, especially the ones who come from college. It takes them longer to get to 6 years, at least in age-wise, and it's just really rare. So with Urías, what you have here is the potential for a monster deal simply because of his age and, of course, his talent. This guy has been really the Dodgers ace now for the last 2 years, and if you go back to the 2020 postseason, he was extremely valuable then. He had the 2 1/3 inning save in the clincher, the World Series clincher. He is a special cat, and I do expect that he's going to get a monster contract. And the dynamics are interesting too here, guys. So you've got the Dodgers. We all expect that they're going to make a strong run at Ohtani. Most people in the industry believe they are the favorite. But if the Dodgers get Ohtani, then the Angels aren't getting Ohtani. The Padres aren't getting Ohtani. And Urías would be a great fit for both of those teams as well. He's from Mexico, Southern California, of course, the closest area to Mexico in our sport outside of Phoenix. And he just makes perfect sense for those clubs. And the Padres probably need a long-term, younger starter as they go forward. So do the Mets. So do a lot of teams. So I expect that the bidding for him is going to be really spirited, and he's going to be a hot guy come the offseason.
Do you think they're going to get more out of him, whoever signs him, in the next few years, or the length of the contract? Because you mentioned his age. Let's say he gets an 8-year deal, which is kind of unprecedented for pitchers. Everyone wants to kind of go in that 6 range. Could he get up to 8? And will a team try to spread it out like they do and hit a 9 like a Garrett Cole? Because I don't think he's on that level. But if you look at all his trends, everything is trending up. So where do you see him at lengthwise?
It's a great question. And he's going to seek as many years as possible, right? His agent is Scott Boras. Scott Boras negotiated Cole's 9-year, $324 million deal with the Yankees. I would agree. Urías is not Cole. In fact, his velo has kind of crept downward since 2019 to the present, but he's really good. And because of his age, I expect Boras to seek 8, 9, 10 years, whatever the case might be. Now, we all know that length of deal for a starting pitcher is pretty nuts. But so is an 11-year deal for a shortstop named Xander Bogaerts, 11-year deal for Trey Turner. I mean, we are living now in a nutty world. So all it takes is one. There will be competition for Urías. There are other good starting pitchers available. Of course, Ohtani is foremost among them. Nola will be available too. He has not pitched that well so far. Eduardo Rodriguez has an opt-out and is on fire right now for the Tigers. I expect that he will be on the open market in addition to those other names. So, yes, there will be a number of good starters out there, but Urías, again, has the age advantage. He's only thrown 645 innings in his career. You tack on about 60 more for the postseason. So there are not a lot of years there in terms of his age. There is not a lot of mileage in terms of his arm. He did have shoulder surgery in 2017. That's going to be a concern, I'm sure, for some teams. He did have a domestic violence suspension. Some teams might factor that in as well. But I do expect him to do really well.
How about compared to other analytic numbers? His strikeout to walk rate is where it's at. Is there a fear in that? Oh, no, analytically, we need guys that don't just let people put the ball in play. Not saying he's not getting strikeouts, but when you're talking $200 million, you want that guy that's just every day he's got a chance to punch out 6 to 8, and he's not that kind of guy. Do you think that could decrease his value?
It could. And his strikeout rate is holding steady, and his walk rate is actually down this year. He is a command pitcher in many ways. He's a 93-mile-an-hour fastball, changeup, curveball, it's a slurve. He also this year has reincorporated his cutter, so he has multiple weapons. And I would think this is the kind of pitcher, just on what we've seen so far, who can reinvent himself along the way. He's done that this season with the cutter. So, yeah, it's always a concern. All these things come up, but again, it's free agency. One team will set the market, and I expect one team will pay a lot of money for Julio Urías, and other teams would like to pay a lot of money, and he's going to get his due as long as he stays healthy. And that's the caveat you have to, of course, attach to any of this. He has to be healthy when the season ends.